Okay, so in this lesson, we are going to continue working with the distributive property. We're going to go forwards and we're going to go backwards, but this time, instead of just integers, we're also going to have variables. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by reviewing forwards distributive property, then we're going to review backwards distributive property, and then I'm going to show you how to add variables in. So quick review on forwards distributive property. We're going to distribute the 3 to the 6, distribute the 3 to the 5. So 6 times 3 is 18, minus 3 times 5 is 15. 18 minus 15 is 3. That's our final answer. This time we're distributing a negative 4. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Negative 4 times 7 is negative 28. We have the same sign, so we're going to add and keep. Negative 8 plus negative 28 is going to be negative 36. All right, this time we're going to distribute the 2. So 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. 2 times negative 12 is negative 24. Again, I have the same sign. They're both negative, so I'm going to add and keep. Negative 4 plus negative 24 is going to be negative 32. Always make sure that you box off your answer. All right, this time I'm going to distribute the 5. 5 times 10 is 50. Bring down your subtraction, and then 5 times 3 is 15. 50 minus 15 is going to be positive 35. Quick review. All right, let's do a review of backwards. Remember, with backwards, you need to find the GCF. So the GCF of 66 and 22 is going to be 22, and so you're going to set up your forwards GCF with the correct sign inside, which in this case is subtraction. Your GCF is going to go on the outside. 66 divided by 22 is 3, 22 divided by 22 is 1, and then you just write it neatly for your final answer. 22 on the outside, and then 3 minus 1 on the parentheses, or in the parentheses on the inside. All right, you have negative 12 plus negative 24. Again, ignore your negatives when you're finding your GCF. Your GCF here is 12. Go ahead and set up your forwards distributive property, what it would look like. Your operation on the inside here is plus. Don't get confused with all those negative signs. So your 12 is going to go outside because it's your GCF. Negative 12 divided by 12 is going to be negative 1. Don't forget your sign. Negative 24 divided by 12 is negative 2. Be careful with your signs, and then write it neatly for your final answer. All right. For the next problem, we have negative 2 minus 28. So it looks like our GCF there is, let's see, 7, or is it 14? Let's see, does 14 go into, let's see, it's 14. Our GCF is 14, not 7. All right, so let's go ahead and set up our forwards distributive property, minus sign on the inside. So 14 on the outside. So negative 42 divided by 14 is going to be negative 3. 28 divided by 14 is 2, and then we're going to write it neatly. And remember that all of these can be checked by doing forwards distributive property. And then last but not least, here we have 64 and 16. I believe 16 is the GCF. We'll check that in just a second. Our sign is addition on the inside. Let's see, 64 or 16 times 4. Yep. So 64 divided by 16 is 4, and then 16 divided by 16 is 1. So our final answer here is going to be 16 parentheses 4 plus 1. All right, so that was a quick review of forwards and backwards. Now, we're going to do the exact same thing, except we're going to add in some variables. And it's actually a little easier than working with just integers. So here's forwards distributive property, and it's actually only one step. So this is what your problem is going to look like when it's given to you. Step 1 is you're going to distribute the term on the outside to the terms on the inside of the parentheses. So in this case, a 4 is on the outside, and you're going to take it. You're always going to distribute to the first term first and to the second term second. Now, when you're multiplying a number times a variable, such as 4 times x, you're going to put them together like this. 4x, because we don't know what x is, so we cannot find the actual value of 4 times x. So by putting them together next door to each other, like we've talked about throughout the school year, we know that the 4 and the x is being multiplied to each other. So 4 times x is 4x, and then 4 times 5 is 20. Now, we cannot go any further because we cannot add 4x plus 20. We cannot combine them. 4x is not a number like 20 is. You cannot add 4 to 20 and call it 24x. It's simply 4x plus 20, and you have to stop there. All right, let's look at what backwards distributive property looks like. It's very, very similar. So step 1 is you're going to ignore the variable. Very important. Forget that the variable is even there. Step 2, do what you normally do and find the GCF of the two numbers. So here we have 30x plus 45. Ignore the variables, so forget that x is there. What's the GCF of 30 and 45? Well, the GCF is 15. Step 3, go ahead and set up your parentheses for forwards distributive property like you usually do, and put your GCF outside. Now, remember that you have a variable, and go back to your original problem. Was your variable with your first term or with your second term? Well, here it was with your first term, so put your variable back on the first line inside the parentheses. For step 4, all you're going to do is finish backwards distributive property the same way that you're used to doing. What's 30 divided by 15? 2. Just put it in front of the x. What's 45 divided by 15? 3. And so your final answer here is 15 parentheses 2x plus 3. All right, so let's try some examples of that. So here's forwards distributive property because I have a number outside that I need to distribute to the inside. So I need to do 4 times y, which is 4y. My operation is addition, so I'm going to write plus, and then 4 times 7 is 28. I cannot go any further. That is my final answer. All right, here I have a negative 3 on the outside that I need to distribute. So, negative 3 times 3f. Now, I'm still multiplying the number times the number. I'm just also including the letter. So, negative 3 times 3f is negative 9f. Okay? And then negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, why didn't you bring down the minus sign and do something like this? Negative 3, and then negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. So this is technically an acceptable answer, but I also need you to start thinking of minus signs as negative signs. They are one of the same. Okay, and so when you see a minus sign, it's also a negative sign, which is something that we're going to start to encounter in our next lesson, combining like terms. All right, so, and I'll show you an example of that in the next problem, but just go with it for a second here. All right, so here we have 5 times negative 7, which is negative 35, and then we have plus 5 times negative 2m, which is negative 10m. And I cannot go any further because one of them has an m in it, and I cannot combine them. So here I have negative 9 times 11d, which is negative 99d. And then here, again, the situation I was just explaining to you, I want you to see this as -9 times -4c, which is positive 36c. I need you to start looking at negative signs as minus signs and minus signs as negative signs. All right, now let's take a look at some backwards distributive property. So here we need to ignore the variable and we need to find the GCF of 18 and 27. So I'm going to split 18 into 2 and 9, 3 and 3. 27 is going to split into 3 and 9, and then 3 and 3. And then I have 3's that cancel, so I'm going to bring one over. And then I have another 3 that cancels, so I'm going to bring it over. 3 times 3 is 9, so my GCF is 9. I'm going to set up my forwards distributive property here. I have a minus sign in the middle. My GCF is 9, and it's going to go on the outside. And now I need to put my variable on the proper line. It's on the first term, so I'm going to put it on the first term. Now, 18 divided by 9 is 2. 27 divided by 9 is 3. So when I rewrite my final answer, I'm just going to write it a little neater like this, and I'm going to box it off. 9 parentheses 2x minus 3. Next one, 14d plus 21. I'm going to find the GCF of 14 and 21. I can split up 21 as 3 and 7, and I can split up 14 as 2 and 7. I have 7's that match, so that's my GCF. I'm going to set up my lines for forward distributive property. My operation inside is addition. The GCF is 7 on the outside, and I need to put my variable on the correct line on the inside, which is the first term. 14 divided by 7 is 2, and 21 divided by 7 is 3. And so I'm just going to rewrite it properly. All right, let's take a look at another example. So remember, when you do the GCF, you can go ahead and ignore the variables. So here I'm going to find the GCF of 16 and 32. So 16 can be broken up into 2 and 8. And then I can break up 8 into 2 and 4. And I can break 4 up into 2 and 2. For 32, I can break it up into 2 and 16. 16 I can break up into 2 and 8. 8 I can break up into 2 and 4. And then 4 I can break up into 2 and 2. Now I need to go ahead and find my matches. So I have 2's that match. I have another 2 that matches. I have another 2 that matches. And I have one more 2 that matches. When I multiply all those together, I'm going to get 16. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my lines for forward distributive property. My operation inside is subtraction. And I'm going to put my 16 on the outside because that's my GCF, and my variable on the inside with the first term because that's where it went. So negative 16 divided by 16 is negative 1. Now, you can write negative 1 right here, or if you remember when we first started to talk about expressions, when there's a 1 in front of a variable, it's actually invisible. So you can choose to write that 1 right there, or you can just choose to leave a negative sign in front of the n and not write the 1. It's up to you. And then 32 divided by 16 is 2. So this would read 16 negative n minus 2. And again, if you want to put the 1 right there, you can. It's perfectly fine. All right, let's take a look at the next one. So we have 9 and 30. So we're going to split up 9 as 3 and 3. We're going to split up 30 as 2 and 15, and then 3 and 5. So our matches here, we're just going to have a match of 3's. All right, so I'm going to set up my lines for forward distributive property. My operation inside is addition. So my GCF is 3, and my variable is x, and it's on the first term. 9 divided by 3 is 3. Negative 30 divided by 3 is negative 10. And I'm going to go ahead and just write it a little bit neater. Now, I do want to say something. Just like with normal backwards distributive property with variables, you can also do forwards distributive property to check your answer, and you should get the exact same answer. So what's nice about this is that you can always go back and check your work. So for example, with this one right here, 3 times 3x is 9x, plus 3 times negative 10 is negative 30. And that should match what's right up here. You can do the same thing with any problem. Okay, so here's 4 problems for you to try. Go ahead and try them, and I will do the same, and then we will compare our answers. Alright, let's go ahead and compare some answers. So for the first one, you should have gotten negative 6n minus 24 because you're distributing the negative 6. For the second one, you're distributing the positive 5. You should have gotten negative 15x minus 20y. And then for the third one, I didn't write it down, but let me do so now. Your GCF was 9. You should have gotten 9 parentheses 7g minus 4. And then for the fourth one, your GCF was 22. So you should have gotten 22 parentheses 3c plus negative 2. Alright, that is it for this lesson. We will do lots of practice in class, but this was your first real introduction to mixing variables with some operations. So make sure you ask me any questions you have in class.